Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Umbrella Academy Season 3, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This is the shortest episode in the season, like, basically not counting the credits. It's about, 36 minutes, maybe? And every other episode's been 40-ish, so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. But, the end is near. There's kind of, once again, after the celebrations last night, everyone's kind of waking up from their whole thing. Klaus and Ben, Ben did have fun, but Klaus is like, yeah, I knew the good old Ben was there, but it's like, right, you are a good person on the inside. You just try so hard to be a bad one, and he just doesn't get why. So, at the same time, Five slightly remembers, we saw some of the speech that he gave, and the way everyone was just kind of clapping like that. I didn't know if that was real or whether that was all in his head or whatever, but it does seem like it was legit real. The way everyone talks about it later on about the great speech that he gave. But he remembers their dad talking to someone, and he just couldn't place who. He's trying to remember what. And so their dad is gathering everyone. Because the opening, it's kind of, I think it's interesting because obviously we know that's one of the key things that Luther held against their father for so long, because he even talks to about it later. It's like, he did everything his father ever told him or asked him to do it without question. He did it, and it's like, what did it get me? It got me solitude. It got me away from my siblings, which is even sadder that, the picture Luther has is of the 6, not 7, because there's no Victor in the picture. But the fact is that he did everything his father did, and it just got him alone and had no one. He stayed, because I think the last day we see of him on the moon is it was 972 or something like that. I want to say, because that's not 4 years, but I want to say, because if I remember correctly, wasn't he on the moon for 4 years? Maybe that wasn't that long, but he was definitely, obviously, even that 900 and some days, it's like, yeah, that's over, probably pushing 2.5 years, basically. Probably more 2 years and 3/4 of a year. Probably is kind of how that math kind of breaks down. But I think he was there for 4 years in totality, but maybe I'm misremembering. Either way, there's a border, he ends up getting to a barrier that stops him from crossing the moon. I'm like, and you didn't think that was suspicious that there's at least maybe half this moon you're not allowed to go see? I'm like, what's on the dark side of the moon? And it ends up being a cryo capsule with a Hargrave inside of it, Abigail. Once again, it's been so long, so I don't remember. I don't know if I doubt that's one of his other children. That has to be his wife. Because he talks about it a little bit later on with Five, and Five didn't really think too much of it, but I think it's pretty pertinent that he said, hey, I've seen so many worlds get destroyed. And maybe he thought that was his father waxing poetically, but it's no, he means he's probably, either Reginald's done what he's doing on this planet on multiple planets. It's probably it started with his world and maybe he bounced from different worlds and it just always ended the same. It's right, trying to do everything you can, which even he doesn't think he did everything he could when it came to saving his world. But that's what he was hoping the children would be. They would be a fix to his mistakes from all those years ago. So he's convincing Five that they should do this. But Five's like, no, my future self told me not to save the world. So that's what I'm not going to do. He's like, right, your future self, present. He's like, the past is just as much of a mystery, old man, Because it's right, you didn't listen to me before and there were consequences. Are you willing to take the chance to not listen to me now? And it's because he did kind of it made sense. But he also knows, he's like, I know you're hiding something. I just don't know what. At the same time, Luther's having that conversation with Sloane. Sloane's trying to say, right, give him another shot. He's not the same dad. But for Luther, it's no matter what reality, the man who raised us is not a good guy. And you can't trust him. Because even he kind of saw through Allison's apology. He's like, oh, I see what this is. And she's like, what? No, you have to both be there. But even now, I was at first I was okay, Luther, you're reading too much into it. She's not setting you up by being yeah, this is a half-ass apology. As in the long run, we find out it was. But it was yeah. So Luther was kind of right to trust his end, because he thought oh, this is a ploy just so we get this family meeting with Dad. And he tells him about these 7 bells. Basically, it's a thing throughout history where there are these 7 bells that need to be rung. Throughout history, and 7 has always been that significant number. I mean, not even just in the show, but in general. It's just like, oh, like 7 warriors. What ain't that what the I think that goes back to like the Ronins and stuff, but maybe that goes beyond even that. But then like, aren't they like the 7 Ronin? I think that's always been the, well, I guess like 6 and 7, because like there's a Magnificent 6. Oh, no, it was the Magnificent 7, wasn't it? 7's always been the key number. I'm kind of confusing myself. It's always been the key number, and so the question then becomes, the fact is he ended up managed to get 7 children. He was only able to get 7 children in both timelines. It's probably because that's all he ever needed. And the moment he got like, okay, cool, I got 7, I don't have to worry about the others. So it's about ringing a bell and going to that other, that back door. It's supposed to be like, right, in case of emergency, break glass, it resets the universe. Granted, we don't know what that reset necessarily does and what that'll look like, but it's supposed to, I mean, not even, they never used the word reset, they just said fix everything. So it's Ben is obviously on her dad's side because he's like, right, he sees this as an opportunity because he's in Luther's shoes. It's like, right, I'm the one that always say yes. Who knows how the rest of his siblings would have felt about this, whether they would have been so gung-ho about it. But Ben's the one that's like, yeah, because he looks past a lot of their father's BS. And obviously Klaus has been swayed by their father because of like how good he's been. It's like, yeah, I believe in dad. So he's all about this. But this comes down to the rest of the siblings. They have to decide what they're going to do. Lila is voting. Well, Diego wants to go, but because it's like a chance to save the universe, but he wants Lila to stay. But Lila is like, no, I'll go, but you'll stay. Which obviously it's like, for him, he's like, right, can't I ever be right? You know, it's like, I just want to protect you and the baby. But for her, it's like, I'm a better friend. He's like, no, you're not. But it's like, yeah, this is who you're with. If you wanted to be with someone, not like you should have been with someone else. He's like, I said all that stuff about choosing you because I want you to be nice to me. It's like, if you wanted someone nice to you, you would have been with someone else and not me. So she's kind of being stubborn in that regard. Because I think maybe legitimately she's scared that if Diego goes, he won't be around. And she would probably rather go out fighting and dying by his side. Because, I mean, they did kind of die separately and alone. I mean, they all kind of died together because of the handler, but she was like the last one, well, aside from 5, to die. So I wonder for her, is that I'm thinking of like, I can't, she's just scared to die alone. She'd rather die with all of them than take the chance of waiting here just to die, for Diego to potentially not come back. She'd rather be there to make sure he does come back. So everyone's got some choices to make in the long run about what they are going to do. And so Allison comes to Victor and she's like, you were right. I was drunk. I'm sorry. And, but it's like, right. She's like, this pain, I'll have to carry it, but I might be hurting, but that doesn't give me the right to take it out on you and hurt you in the process. So can you forgive me? It's like, let's put everything aside and we could do this. We could work together and make this right. And Allison apologizes, but you could see that look on Allison's face. I was like, that doesn't seem like she really believes what she's saying. She's still so angry. And you can almost see it on Victor's face, almost like Victor's like, okay, this is nice. But later on, even he was like, yeah, things are kind of weird there. So 5 ends up talking to Luther about like, right, like when has the old man ever been straight with us? He's hiding something, and talked about the deal he saw. It's like, yeah, it's like, because even Luther was like, yeah, I mean, he was pretty brutally honest on our performance reviews. He was like, really? I mean, he's like, he always gave me 5 stars, and Luther's like, wait, really? It's like, God, I'd love to read those and find out what he really thought about his children. Well, I guess he's always been pretty blunt about how he's felt about them. So that's where that stands. And 5 is just saying, like, right, this is kind of some food for thought, just kind of thinking about things. About, can you really, like, 100% trust your dad? Like, obviously, he's got some ulterior motive. So when it comes down to the voting, the votes are split. Allison's trying to rally. Everyone's like, yeah, we should be in this together. We can do this. Lila's down. Ben is down. And so is Klaus, along with Allison. Diego decides to stay because it's like, right, because Lila wants to go so bad, he wants to stay because fine, I won't go. I will make sure none of us go if I can make sure that you end up staying. Victor decides like, right, we don't know if this is actually going to work. And for Allison, she looked so disgusted because it's like, right, after everything, you this could be a chance for you to make up for what you've done, but you're not going to take this chance. It's about family. And it's like, once again, Reginald and Victor, I talked about it earlier. It's like, what does that even mean anymore? It's like that word keeps getting thrown around. And Reginald's like, basically, family's the ones who stick through you when you kind of go through your trials. But Victor's just kind of like, he just kept being like, yeah, something just didn't feel right about this. We don't know enough, so he's voting to stay. Sloane and Luther decided to stay too because, right, we want to spend whatever time we have left together. And ultimately, it comes down to 5, and 5's like, right, I'm listening to my older self. It's a no-go. We're going to stay here. So it's 5-4. They, everyone's upset about the outcome. But it's like, yeah, just enjoy whatever time they have left. And just everyone in their respective rooms just kind of ruminating about everything. Well, I think that was beforehand. But yeah, in the aftermath of it all, 5 ended up running into Victor because 5 is trying to retrace his footsteps and remember who he saw. And the way Victor's like, yeah, that Allison thing was weird. And 5 was like, fuck, it was Allison. And it's like, once I figured as much. My toss-up last episode was Victor or Allison, but I figured it had to be Allison. I leaned more towards Allison because she's the one that, truth be told, is amongst all of them feels like she has nothing to lose. She's the one that's been spiraling, being like, yo, like, nothing's real. Plus, like Victor said, it's like, right, she's ready to tear me apart. Last night, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, love and everything, and, oh, agreeing with dad, and, like, let's come together, family. It's like, she's been super anti-family lately, and so, yeah, she's kind of put up the front, but it's just like, especially that look when that she gave behind Victor's back, you're like, yeah, something sinister is going on here. So, but at first, because I thought she was going to go off and handle things on her own, because she went to that room. I don't know if that was the Buffalo room or whatever room she came to, but it was locked and she was just banging on the door. She broke down. That made me for a second. I was like hesitating, being like, oh, maybe it wasn't Allison, but because everything just didn't line up correctly. Then you had Luther go to his dad, had that conversation I had brought up earlier about, right, I've done everything you've ever asked me to do. And he's like, I just can't do it again. Like, you are so hard to say no to. And now, like, for Luther, it took him this long after everything that they've been through for him to finally say no to his father. And he's like, you're right. And nor should you do what he's like, yeah, I'm happy for you, son, and stuff like that. But he's like, I wish this self-act, I was like, is he, like, because at first I was like, is he going to, like, stab, because I thought he was going to, like, hurt Luther because like something he hid inside of Luther's body a long time ago, and he knows that he hid it in there, even in his timeline. But he uses his tentacle or whatever and stabs Luther in the heart. I was like, oh shit. And he's like, I'm sorry about this, but it's like, right, if a wedding can't bring the entire family together, then maybe a funeral can. At first I thought what he was going to do with the next blow was going to chop off Luther's head. Just sliced him across the chest. It's like, that's such a shame. It's like, right, Luther was right not to trust you. You did these, but it's like, right, this is for the greater good, but I'm sure it's not for the greater good. I'm for sure once again, it might save the universe, but he definitely has his ulterior motives, and I'm curious if it has to do with who's ever on the moon. That I think the name was Abigail, if I remember correctly. It's about her. It's always been about her. He's got his selfish motivations, and once again, Pogo even warned, right, he was going to send you on a suicide mission. This was said suicide mission, and he'll throw as many people as he can. He kind of has no choice. This is the Hail Mary, that he needs 7 people to make this happen. So he knew that everyone would rally around Luther's death, and I figured as much as because of the slash march, you're going to make it seem like it was the Guardian inside there. Because even then the question, because Sloane justifies it by like, right, this is so much power for someone to have, so that's why the Guardian is there to make sure no one uses the power that could basically reset this universe or change this universe. Like, that's too much power for anyone to have, which is interesting because we're having that same conversation about Victor. There might be some parallels there. But by the time, they came to the realization and stuff, they went into the room. And if you look at Allison's hands, she might have been, I would assume Sloane's the first one, but maybe, because Allison's hands were covered in blood, so she might have been the first one to find Luther. But looking at her dad, you can tell that look in her face almost like, You did it, didn't you? Like, she knew that there would probably be a price to pay. Maybe she assumed, like, she knew that their dad was going to. Well, the plan was just to rally everyone together, but that didn't work. So he did this, and Allison knows how desperate he was, the deal they made and everything. So now she knows, like, you killed Luther. Like, holy shit, you killed one of your children. But it's like she didn't say a damn thing, because it's like, whatever sacrifices need to be made, we can save the universe, and in turn we can end up saving Luther in the long run. So maybe that's her justification for it. She's just so desperate, and that I never thought that desperation would turn to this. Like, I knew she would spiral, but I thought she'd be better. I'd be like, holy shit, I didn't expect things to get this dark. But even she recognizes how fucked up this is. And no one else kind of pieces it together. It's like they see the marks, and he made sure to either naturally that's how things work for Reginald, his like tentacles or whatever, or like the weapon he was able to summon, or maybe it's just his ability to mimic stuff. He knew exactly what type of slash marks he'd need to make, because he's seen them, because those soldiers back in the day might not be the only people he's ever sent inside of Oblivion. It might have been other people as well. So he probably knows that thing slash marks enough. Probably even got to look at Diego's hands and knows that he out of anyone would be able to recognize slash marks, so use this to his advantage. And now it's kind of like, yeah, it's all or nothing, we have to go. Sloane not wanting to leave Luther behind. Even Ben saying like, right, if we struck first, this would have never happened. So but when the time comes, everyone's rushing in, because everything, and the last one to go is Chet, which is he's like, oh, we've had a long run, old girl, and he finally goes. I was like, oh, I guess the universe held out for you, my friend. This was the last standing place, and then finally it started to crumble. Everyone goes through, but when it's time for cost, because Reginald's like, thank you for putting us all together, but you're kind of slow us down. It's like, so everything was a manipulation, like it always has been. You used Luther, and now you're using Klaus. You got close to Klaus just because you needed one of your children. He was the easiest. He was the fuck up of the team that you could make into the person that chooses your side. That way, things would sway more your way. And now, in the end, Klaus is like, wow, my dad is yet again, here you are screwing me over, leaving me, not just to my death, my erasure from the universe as it's collapsing. Because I thought at the end, maybe Klaus was going to be able to resurrect Luther. He can bring himself back to life, so I was thinking maybe he could do the same thing for Luther, but Klaus instead jumps on that buffalo and impales himself, killing himself. His body might be gone, but at least his soul and spirit can go to the other side. You know, maybe he can end up finding Luther too. So it's like, Jesus. Hell of a way to end the episode. Obviously, setting up for the season finale. What the hell that's going to be is going to be so fascinating to see where the season finale takes us with all of this. Because eventually 5 is going to call out his dad next. He has to be like, you and Allison made a deal, yada yada. I don't know if he necessarily, because there's always been a conversation of like, oh my God, who could have killed Marcus? It's like, well, it's not too out of the realm of possibility to believe dad could have done it. Like, they made that clear, like, oh, so now we've shown like, oh no, he's not afraid to kill one of his kids if need be. So if it's for what he perceives to be the greatest, for the greater good, but you know, that greater good comes from a selfish place, it's not completely altruistic. Maybe from his point of view it is, you know, but that's sad, because once again, Klaus thought this is a new dad. It's like, no, it's the same old dad. I don't know. Maybe this dad might be worse. Once again, this is the one who, because they bumped into him in 63, like I said, ruined the whole him and Grace thing. I think his humanity isn't what it was in the original timeline. So I think those are contributing factors in why this Reginald might be the worst version of Reginald. They might think their dad was bad, but this one, the other one was probably a little more upfront. This one is a complete manipulator on many different levels, so that might make him kind of the worst version, but like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait to see where the season finale takes us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.